F sharp, A sharp, revisited.
Hello everyone, and welcome to F Sharp A Sharp Revisited, the music review podcast where we are the hunters and the musicians are the little duckies. I am Joe, the music critic supervillain, and with me is the Amnesiac Nick.
Am I?
I believe you are.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay, and together we'll be finding out whether we're going to be throwing the ducks some bread or giving them a pat on the head, or shooting them. I'll get our guns ready, Nick. So the first album we've got, Nick, tell us a little bit about it.
Foo Fighters. Everyone knows Foo Fighters.
Yes.
Do I really need to give them an introduction? They're pretty much the biggest rock band on the planet at the moment. Aside from the classic acts, which are a bit past their time now.
Yeah, they're a bit dead, unfortunately.
The biggest contemporary rock act in the world today, fronted by legendary frontman Dave Grohl. I mean, if you don't know Dave Grohl just by name, you can't picture him on stage yelling and just generally being cool.
Yes, with his gorgeous long hair.
I don't know where you've been.
Yeah.
I believe this is their 8th album.
Yep.
And it is called Concrete and Gold. Now, Foo Fighters for the past, well, ever since The Colour and the Shape being their breakout album, they have made album after album, which is just full of filler, in my opinion. They are incredibly good at doing radio hit singles. I don't think they've ever done a single I haven't liked. And back in 2011, they released an album, Wasting Light, which didn't have any filler on it and was a great return to form.
Good album, thumbs up.
And then they released Sonic Highways, which was... And now they've released this, so let's get into it. First of all, another really strong killer lead single, I think, in the form of Run.
For me, it was a grower, though. I wasn't so sure when I first heard it, but I think it did grow on me a lot.
I think it works better in the context of the album than it does as a standalone single. I really like the lead into it from the opening track, T-shirt.
Oh, T-shirt is a great opening track. It's only like a minute and a half, but it just has a lovely build from the soft opening into it.
It really sets up your attention for the album.
Oh, definitely.
So, this album, does it have filler on it, do you think?
Yes, I think it does.
100%
I think it does.
I suppose it was too much too.
Yeah, there are some good tracks on it though. But should we name and shame the filler tracks?
I would go as far as to say that it's actually more consistent than a lot of other Foo Fighters albums. But yes, some of the filler tracks, for example,
Make It Right.
Yeah.
It has a kind of classic-inspired bluesy hard rock riff, but then some really hackneyed lyrics as well. It's basically like listening to AC/DC. So
I think that the riff gets super annoying really quickly, honestly, and it takes up too much of the song. But I will say that I really, really like the chorus to it. I love the matching vocals in the background and the forefront, and then the bridge to it with the gang vocals in the background, I think work really well and save the song from being one of the worst on the album. And it is catchy, I'll give it that as well.
It's catchy. I think the Foo Fighters know how to construct a song that's satisfying to listen to, but I think in Make It Right and a few other songs, there just isn't anything special about it that makes me particularly drawn to it or want to return to it. Another one that didn't get me was La Di Da.
I wouldn't say La Di Da is filler as such, because I found it a lot more memorable than some of the other tracks on it. I just found that it sort of suffered from a bit of muddy production here and there, which it could have been a lot more engaging if Dave Grohl's yells on that had been a bit more powerful in the mix. Another thing that has always got me about Foo Fighters is they never seem to do guitar solos. And that's something that I think they could pull off really well with their style of music, and they always just seem to shy away from it, and I think it's a great shame.
I would agree with you, but there is a kind of guitar solo at the end of La Di Da, but it's one of the laziest guitar solos.
I don't want to call it a guitar solo because it's just more like a guitar interlude, just a bit of a fill.
There's just a few notes there.
And there is a guitar solo of sorts in Happy Ever After, but that's probably the least Foo Fighters-y song on the whole album.
It's also my joint favourite track.
I did like it quite a lot. I wouldn't call it my favourite track because I don't think it really progressed that much throughout. It seemed a bit in neutral, but it was just such a nice change from the rest of the album.
It was such a nice change, and I wasn't a fan of many of the lyrics on the album, but the first verse to Happy Ever After, it was my favourite moment. I'll just read out the lyrics. The sun went down on another perfect day. Busy counting shadows on the wall, the weeds are swallowing up the flower bed. Roses in the whiskey jar, blood on the thorns, drink until the taste is gone. I
That's
just
it.
love that opening verse.
Well, talking about good lyrics on the album, I think Arrows had some really great lyrics on it. I think
Hmm.
Grohl's delivery as well in the chorus to that song makes my hair stand on end
Yeah.
occasionally. I think that's one of the stronger songs on the album.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. Sometimes when I listen to that song, I want a bit more narrative to that song. It just seems like he's just describing a miserable friend he has. I know there's more to the song than that, but
Yeah,
sometimes I think I want a bit more narrative in my songs. But it was a great kind of midway interlude in the album, just to keep up the momentum.
definitely, definitely. I think that some of the songs on the album have really good ideas, like "Happily Ever After," but then just don't really go far enough with them. Like "La Di Da," we've already talked about, and "Concrete and Gold" as well
Hmm.
as good ideas, but it's just so long and slow, and it's empty calories in song form.
Mm, I think I still enjoyed Concrete and Gold. I think it was nice to. I got a bit of a Pink Floyd vibe going on in that song, and I like the Foo Fighters just trying something a bit different because sometimes I feel like the Foo Fighters tread a thin line between just simply always paying homage to rock acts that have come before them and actually trying something new. They don't really experiment all that much, and I think I appreciated that more in this album.
Well, I think with all of those songs, they weren't necessarily bad songs. They just didn't do too much for me. As far as
Hmm.
songs I didn't like on the album, when there was only really one I can think of, and that's actually their second single, "The Sky Is a Neighborhood."
Oh, that was one. That was my other favorite.
I just,
This is going to be fun.
I just thought the verses in it were just stupidly boring, and it didn't go anywhere. And the chorus got really annoying after the third time they did it, and
I just thought it was really catchy. I mean, what I liked so much about that song, well, with the lyrics of the song, there's so much reference to sound and noise, and I kind of see another point where it's a bit difficult to piece it all together, but it's just like it sounds like there's a war going on next door, and that's what this song is about. And it's all brought together very, I think, very subtly and very tactfully. I just really liked it, the way it all came together. I thought the climax was great as well.
as far as other songs that I liked on the album go, it talked about "Run," which I think is probably my favorite
Yeah.
on the album. I think it's great that they can release a song like that so late in their career. Then I thought "The Line" would have made a better single than "The Sky's a Neighborhood." Personally, I love the emotion on that track, and I think the echoey guitar that
Hmm.
happens in the verses is absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, the echoes and just the general liveliness of the line is really well done. I'm not sure entirely about the lyrics though, but
I've,
it's
s-
the Foo Fighters.
I mean, with certain bands, I don't pay as much attention to the lyrics as with others. If a band has set me up with expectations for good lyrics, like Muse did, I would pay more attention to what they release. But Foo Fighters, I've never really taken much stock from their lyrics, so it doesn't bother me too much anymore. I mean, I can't. If I liked all of the production and composition on this
Yeah,
album, I wouldn't be able to call it a perfect album because of the lyrics being bad. But I'm not going to detract too much from it.
yeah.
Those are about my thoughts on the album, honestly.
There's not really much more left to say. I do think
It's
there's a bit of filler, but there are highlights for me. So
I think it's sort of your standard Foo Fighters album, but just a little
yeah,
bit more consistent.
yeah, I'd say so. I'd say strong six, light seven.
I'd say the same.
Yeah, it's a good album. If you like the Foo Fighters, then you'll probably
If you
definitely
like the
like
Foo
this.
Fighters, then go and listen to Wasting Light or Colour in the Shape.
Well, yeah, yeah. And listen to this and pick out which tracks you
Yeah,
like.
yeah, definitely. I mean,
Basically,
Run is one of the strongest tracks I think they've ever done.
yeah.
So,
And even if The Sky is a Neighborhood isn't to everyone's taste, I do think it is one of the better tracks on the album. It is a bit different for them as well.
well,
So
let's
yeah.
move on to something very different.
Oh, it's
Very
very
different.
different.
So we've already talked about Ariel Pink once on the show. We talked about his single "Time to Live," and we both
Yeah.
agreed that it was a bit of a mind-bending but good track.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So now he's finally released this his second album under his own name, following Pom Pom, and this is dedicated to Bobby Jameson, which I've just realised I've written in my notes as Booby Jameson.
I did not laugh at that.
Ariel Pink has been around for forever in various different projects, and now he started doing albums just under the name Ariel Pink. and I really liked Pom Pom. I thought that it was really diverse and interesting and engaging. So I was really interested in this album when Time to Live came out.
Yeah.
It got me really hyped for it. I think the album is a bit like a psychedelic time machine in that a lot of the songs sound like they could come from different eras.
Yeah.
But then that sort of brings me to one of my problems with the album, which is the way that he makes it this work is all of the songs have this one style of production on them, which make them sound really airy and slightly ethereal.
But then,
And
yeah.
I just found that got kind of irritating after a while.
Well, I listened to this album a number of times, as I do with, all the albums. I was finding it really difficult to have a strong opinion on this album. And I kind of agree with you that the production, it has this kind of airy, but I'd describe it as both airy and dense at the same time. There's definitely some noise pop influence in the production and some of the songs
Oh,
as well.
definitely.
I do think that at some point it was just him trying on different masks as well. And
Yeah.
at some points there were, I think it was in the song I Wanna Be Young, but I kind of realized that he often uses very quirky vocal delivery, and sometimes he was using that to mask some quite banal lyrics
Yeah.
sometimes as well.
I think that the album title promises more than the album delivers.
The tracks they barely relate to
I
dedicated
think,
to Bobby Jameson.
as I noticed, Bobby Jameson was mentioned twice on the album. Once in the song dedicated to Bobby Jameson, which
Yeah.
was actually one of my favourites on the album, and then
Yeah.
again in
Do Yourself a Favor?
yeah,
Yeah.
briefly, just by his
Oh
first
yeah,
name.
yeah. But Pop Goes the Weasel. Bobby's
Yeah.
my best friend and I'm the best dressed.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of I listened to that lyric and I'm like, okay. They had a bit of a fashion war going on then, apparently, allegedly.
As you said, I think some songs are just sort of distractions through their weirdness, be it his
Yeah.
vocal delivery or other features, such as my least favourite track on the album, Santa's in the Closet. Did
Oh,
absolutely nothing for me, and I can't listen to it.
well, that kind of confused me because of course the album title, dedicated to Bobby Jameson, it sets it up to be this emotive, dedicated album. And then Santa's in the Closet comes on, and the first verse is describing Santa getting undressed in a closet. And
Yeah, with
imagine having that dedicated to
yeah,
you, Nick.
with just the most annoying vocal delivery as
Yeah.
well, and repetitive backing, which I don't like listening to it.
It's yeah, it definitely made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, I'm not gonna lie.
And then Time to Meet Your God as well, to a lesser extent, I feel like is there to just sort of be a bit weird and jarring.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think as an opener to the album, it grabs your attention, but I'm not
it
sure how much
works.
it does otherwise.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a bad song. It's better than Santa's in the Closet.
Santa's yeah, I think this whole album reminds me of an average to bad episode of Adventure Time.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
best
yeah.
equivalent.
That's a good way of
That
putting it.
kind of
Actually,
leaves you at the end thinking, what did I just experience? But having said all that, I do think there are some good tracks on the album.
Oh,
I think
definitely.
let's have some positivity now.
Okay,
Death Patrol. I liked Death Patrol.
okay. Death Patrol, I wasn't so fond of.
Okay,
I thought it was a bit stagnant.
I quite liked the very yeah, yes, I just criticised Ariel Pink for being a bit weird unnecessarily, but I quite liked just the odd squelchy, quirky beat to that song. I
I just think it sort of starts off with an interesting groove that just doesn't go anywhere.
I'd say it goes somewhere because it has that weird scratchy cello-y strings bit halfway through. That's
So-
something I liked as well.
Well, it probably speaks how much I cared for the songs. I just don't remember it.
Yeah, well, I liked that song, and of course, "Time to Live."
Yeah,
We
Time-
liked that track.
I think Dedicated to Bobby Jameson has some actual decent, catchy lyrics on the album,
Yeah.
which is severely lacking from the other tracks. I like the transitions between the sections, and I find myself singing along to the chorus quite a lot.
Yeah,
And it's got a nice little guitar solo in it as a distraction. As far as other good songs go, I really like Bubblegum Dreams.
oh, definitely. That's where I was really getting the noise pop vibes as
Yeah.
well. Liked that track.
It's just
and-
really fun, good energy, super catchy. And it mimics the Beach Boys quite well, I think.
Yeah.
With this like psychedelic time machine vibe that seems to be
Yeah.
on the other tracks. I think it really works here.
And it's nice as well because it seems they're taking a few cues from J-pop as well because it's basically just talking about sweets. So, so yeah,
As far as the rest of the tracks on the album go, there just aren't really many that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I think the last couple of tracks do yourself a favour in acting. It switched up the feel quite nicely towards the end of the album. It kept the momentum going and were interesting enough for me, so I wasn't leaving the
Yeah.
album with a sour taste at all. So,
I wouldn't say they're
yeah.
the best songs on the album, though. I think the only other song that I have anything to say about is Another Weekend, which is just one that I didn't care for at all. I found it really Aryan and interesting, and the sort of album could have done without it.
Yeah, I mean it's not a long album. Well, it's 49 minutes, 14 tracks. I suppose another thing about this album is a lot of the tracks are short, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all, but they go very quickly from one to each other, and sometimes it does leave the forgettable tracks very
Yeah, I think
forgotten.
if you're going to do an album with lots of tracks that are short, you need to make sure every single one of them is interesting
Yeah,
in some way.
they have to be punchy,
Yeah.
and
They...
not Santa's in the Closet punchy.
Oh, no, let's not mention that song ever again.
So, closing thoughts.
I'd much rather just go and listen to Pom Pom again. I feel like it did similar things but better. I feel like this is a bit of a regression for Ariel Pink.
Yeah, this album has a lot of problems. I don't like being too harsh on it because there are tracks I
Yeah,
like.
I do think there are a lot of interesting ideas on it. I'm just
Yeah.
not sure the execution is great.
Yeah, I'm thinking strong 5,
I'm
maybe
thinking,
light 6.
Yeah, light 6 for me.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't going so well so far.
Oh, what we need to do is say whether we're shooting these ducks or not. Ariel Pink, are we shooting them or throwing some... Shooting.
Well, actually, what are the 3 options?
So we've got shooting, we've got pat them on the head, or we'll throw them some bread.
Okay. I'm going to say pat Ariel Pink on the head and just be like, you tried.
I'm going to pat Ariel Pink on the head, but still going to point the gun.
Yeah, just be like, do better next time.
Do better. For Foo Fighters, I'll throw them a few crumbs. Why not?
Just a few.
Just a few.
It's going to be really boring, ordinary white bread, though.
Oh yeah, they're not getting wholemeal. They're not getting seeded. Right.
Well, let's move on.
Beethoven, the Egmont Overture, performed by the Kevin Macleod Orchestra.
Truly a mesmerising piece.
And now for something slightly different. We have recently been indulging ourselves in modern composer Fergie's new album, Double Dutchess.
Yes, her second album released only 11 years after her debut album filled the airwaves in 2006, and she is now delivered as a spectacular voyage through the modern soundscape.
I have to agree. This album is a sensuous release of hypnotic rhythms, contemporary sensibilities, and a flair for bold-tongued proverbials. So much so that I thought we would read some of her poetry for you, live on air.
Heard you in the mood for a little MILF shake. Welcome to the Dairy Dutchess Love Factory. I could whip it up, fix you up straight away. Come on in the front door, leaving at the back door.
Tease on the camera, freeze while I animate. I'm no amateur, I'm a laminate. I'm a assassinate, all the imitates. Then I'm a take a break and meditate.
Come get some, you little bums. Dudes want the cake, but they can't get a crumb from the original sexual, visual dope chick and all that good shit. Charismatic when I'm at it. When I add it up, I'm mathematic.
I didn't mean to whip out the keys to the city. I didn't mean to dress so fresh and pretty. I'm talking about my ladies. Rub on your titties. Yeah, f*** it. I said it. Rub on your boobies. I don't mean to hang with these ladies with booties. We loud and crazy, like we in a movie.
To say it's complicated, understatement of the year. Well, maybe conflict made it a new flavour in your ear. They know that I'm a problem, that's why everybody's scared. Whatever doesn't kill you can make you an illionaire.
Do the champagne shower. Spraying on the clothes. I didn't mean to hurt them. I didn't mean to kill them. I didn't mean to make 10, 20, 100 million. And ever since I made it, I've been murdering on the ceiling. I know why they be hating, 'cause I be top billing. And now I'm cold, cool and cold, chilling like a villain. They feeling my diamonds, the gold on my grilling. I smile like I swallowed a jeweler.
Well, what an absolute treat that was. It's such a joy to see modern lyricism evolve and thrive. Lines such as chilling like a villain, true originality.
Amazing stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if Fergie is made Poet Laureate in my lifetime. Simply fantastic stuff. And now, back to our usual programming. Do you have any thoughts on Fergie's album? Did you listen to it? Out of 10.
Yeah.
It isn't quite the worst album of the year, but it is the second worst.
Worst album of the year is most certainly Katy Perry.
No. Well, not from me.
I haven't heard Machine Gun Kelly.
I'm going to have to force you to listen to it someday. You'll probably give it like a 3 rather than a 1 anyway, but...
I don't see how anything can top Katy Perry for being terrible.
Well, I'd say Fergie does a little bit. I just want to mention 3 songs in a row. Like It Ain't Nuttin' is easily one of the worst songs of the year. The sampled piano riff just sounds like it's trying to ride the wave of Humble from Kendrick Lamar. And then you've got the song You Already Know right afterwards, which sounds so much like Swish Swish by Katy Perry.
And we know how much you love that song.
And because it has those kind of weird background vocal shouts as well, and it also features Nicki Minaj. So I don't know what is Nicki Minaj trying to sabotage Fergie here? Is Fergie just oblivious to everything that's going on? What is this drama? Throw them all in the gulag. And then Just Like You has the hook, Look What You Made Me Do.
I can't wait until Taylor Swift's new album comes out. I'm really looking forward to listening to it.
I wouldn't say I hate these things. I just find them so bizarre. It's so inane. I don't understand why people would write it and why people would listen to it. It boggles me.
Can we move on to something else, please?
Yes, let's move on. So Double Dutchess gets a 2 out of 10 from me. Let's move on then to Luciferian Towers by Godspeed You Black Emperor, who are a drone-tinged post-rock band from Canada, giving us just another album 2 years after their last one, which I think was 2015.
Which was 2 years after their previous one before that, and then there was a good 11 years.
Yeah, there was a bit of a hiatus there.
Absolutely legendary band.
Yes, they are. They definitely have a lot of acclaim behind them. One thing I want to say, Luciferian Towers is my favourite album title of the year so far. I think it's such a cool album title. Nick thinks they're trying too hard.
Yeah.
Nick thinks they're trying too hard.
I do. Just their album titles are the one thing about them that I'm a bit unsure about. Asunder, Sweet and Other Distress. Alleluia, Don't Bend, Ascend. Lift your skinny fists like antennas to heaven. I mean, I suppose we've got to give them credit. We did kind of name our podcast after one of their albums slightly.
Yeah,
but...
we did. They have very pretentious album names, and I said, yeah, and so we take off after them. But yeah, I think this is the first fully instrumental album we've reviewed on the podcast as well.
That's a good point.
I think it is. So yeah, we'll see how we do reviewing it.
You
were going to say something. Go on.
I think that this album pisses me off, honestly. The way that I see it is they came into this album, and if you've read the liner notes to the album, they had a list of demands that came with the album, and the list of demands were an end to foreign invasion, an end to borders, the total dismantling of the prison industrial complex, healthcare, housing, food, and water acknowledged as an inalienable human right, and the expert fuckers who broke this world never get to speak again. Now, I imagine the conversation went something like this. All right, guys, we've got our list of demands. They are so-and-so. Right, how should we deliver this to the people? Free music, of course. All right, let's get to work. Actually, I'm a little tired. Can we just rely on post-rock cliches and meaningless drones? The fans will lap it up anyway. Or can we make it sound all apocalypsy, though? Mike, that's our signature sound. I know you've been away for a while, but come on. Well, how about we add an element of hope around the loud parts so the critics have something to desperately latch onto? Mike, you're a genius. Here, take my keys, go to my house and fuck my wife. This album makes me angry.
Okay. See, I actually liked the album. Contrary to Nick, I do agree with you on those kind of political points. They're a little bit
lost.
Okay then.
It's just
This isn't a political opinions podcast, but I'll just keep it simple. I disagree with their more anarchist tendencies. I don't agree with them, but putting that aside, I actually quite enjoyed the album.
okay. If you like chunky riffs enhanced by strings and no other ideas, then that's fine by
Yeah.
me. No, okay. The composition is a bit lackluster for the band, but it isn't. It isn't terrible. It's just
It's
perfunctory to me.
this I wouldn't have said so. I just really liked the mournful atmosphere. I mean that's kind of what they do anyway as a band, but I'm just realizing it's really hard to describe why I like the album. I think it's just because I do. And the more hopeful elements, I quite liked them in the climactic pieces. So yeah.
I just think that it's nowhere near as good as other work they've done. They've always been really good at capturing this sound of the apocalypse, and now that we're at a time when, I mean,
We're nearly there.
they were split up for the most of the noughties,
Yeah.
which is a time when there was, you know, huge amounts of war going on around the world, and
Mm.
now that we've got to the point where they've come back and they've started doing this apocalypsy sound again, it just doesn't feel like the right time as such.
Mm.
I suppose
Okay.
we've got the conflict with
We got
between
yeah.
Korea and America going on, but honestly, that just feels a bit like a dick measuring
Yeah.
contest to me, and doesn't
Yeah, they're
seem like
chest
something
sucking.
to
Yeah.
make an album like this about.
I agree with your points, but I guess I just still liked it.
I guess the album
I
has
thought
got
I liked it more than their previous few albums.
the album has got decent pacing at least, because the last two albums by them I've listened to have felt quite long to me. Like
Mm.
I've got to force myself to go and sit down to them, whereas this one went by without me feeling like it was either rushing or
Yeah.
dragging.
Well, it is slightly shorter at 43 minutes, so it's one of their shorter albums.
Shorter.
Definitely. And
I mean,
yeah, it flows from start to finish, and I find I'm very happy putting this on to whatever I'm doing. That's my measure for instrumental albums. Can I put it on and enjoy it, not thinking about anything else? And the answer to that is yes, I can.
I think the first thing that I noticed about this album was when I sit down with a Godspeed album, I want to listen into it and try and take in all the textures and melodies. And I think Godspeed You Black Emperor have been excellent at the little subtle touches to their compositions over the years, and I just found those to be desperately missing on this. There was nothing that made me want to come back and listen in again to try and get more out of the little touches. I'm just sad.
We have a very disappointed Nick over here. I think we'd better.
I don't know why I wouldn't go back and listen to Slow Riot for New Zero Canada again, because it's
Okay, I think we need to wrap I think we need to wrap up Godspeed. See, I'd give the album strong 7.
This is just a theme for this podcast where I just listen to these albums and go, oh, why wouldn't I just go and listen to your earlier work?
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. Score out of 10, Nick.
Light 4.
Okay, then. Are we giving them bread? Are we patting them on the head, or are we
shooting them?
You're shooting them. Okay, I'm going to give a warning shot by their feet.
It's not so much that it's a terrible album. It's just an album which I don't think they should have made. I think they could have done a lot better.
Yeah.
To me, this is sort of the signifier that post-rock has met a dead end and is dying.
To be honest,
I don't think that there's anything new being brought to the genre anymore.
Yeah, it's been kind of dying for the last few years. I mean, that being said, my favourite album last year was a post-rock record, so...
Go on.
Well, that was World's End Girlfriend with The Last Waltz. But I know my opinion is... not many people share my opinion on that album, but I'll definitely have to talk about that someday, and why I'm right and everyone else is wrong. But anyway, moving on.
Let's go on to something that's...
Okay.
Okay.
Which
Gizmodrome.
Which I really wanted to talk about.
Joe really wanted to talk about.
So the album is called Gizmodrome. It's their first album, self-titled, and they are a supergroup of classic rock veterans. We have Police drummer Stuart Copeland, Level 42 bassist Mark King, seasoned keyboardist Vittoria Cosmo, and guitarist Adrian Belew, whose CV is so impressive it's almost disturbing. He's worked with King Crimson, Frank Zappa, Nine Inch Nails, Talking Heads. The list goes on. The list
So
goes on.
some really good names.
Some really
And
good.
do you know what that proves? That proves that really prominent figures in classic rock getting together and making music doesn't necessarily guarantee a good album.
I loved this album.
I didn't.
I knew you wouldn't. I knew you wouldn't, because this album is the musical equivalent of a dad joke.
I think this album is the musical equivalent of a really forced party.
Those are the only kind of parties I experience. So,
You remember
Go
our
on.
very, very first podcast where we listened to Michelle Branch, and I said, I like the compositions, but there's just nothing on this album that really stands out to me and makes it memorable. Well, this album has nothing that stands out to me and makes it memorable, and I don't like the compositions very much.
oh, you're so wrong.
It's
You're
so
wrong.
irritating. It gets more annoying the more I listen to it. The vocals just irritate the hell out of me. The guitar solos throughout great, and they've only got one tone they ever use for the guitars in these solos. The mixing in general makes it feel really fluffy in a bad way and makes it all sound too similar, so nothing stands out. And there's not enough variety. Even the slower songs sound upbeat.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
like
good.
it. No, it's not.
It's brilliant.
I can
Oh.
listen to the entire album and not register that I'm listening to it.
Oh, okay then. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the things I liked about the album. Bassist Mark King puts in so much work on this album. He grooves so hard throughout.
I will point out that actually one of the memorable parts on the album is the bass part of Spin This.
That's
And that's because it's at the very beginning of the song and stands by itself.
I love Spin This. I just like the whole song as well. I liked the story of the song. Every instrumental bit is placed perfectly for comedy, and I really like the lyrics as well, describing politicians and other people trying to spin stories against each other, and it's done with an air of comedy that I just thought was really funny. I loved it.
I'm sure I would have paid more attention to the lyrics if I actually liked the delivery of them, but his really casual, kind of talky way of presenting them to me, I just wanted to reach into my computer and slap him.
Oh, Nick, it's not very cordial of you.
Okay,
I-
one song that I do remember and in a way kind of enjoyed is the very first track on the album, Zombies in the Mall. And I'm pretty sure that the only reason I remember it is because it's the first thing I listen to when I sit down to it. And the whistling in it is kind of cool. I like that it's in 6/8 time because that's vastly underused nowadays. That it's too long and the guitar solo annoys me and the vocals annoy me. I guess that the playing's competent, but
Oh, the playing's great. The playing's great, and the lyrics are so. See, my one reservation on this album initially was the lyrics, but I just like them if you accept that they're going to be dad lyrics. I mean, some of the lyrics to the Zombies in the Mall, there's just no way to be cool when the Crocs are in the pool. It's kind of cringeable, but I found it kind of charming at the same time.
see, in a way, it kind of reminded me, partly through name, partly through tone of the song, of Fashion Zombies by the Aquabats. And that song's also got lyrics which are really cheesy and really daddy. Oh, no, I wish I hadn't described it that way. But I just think that the other song by the Aquabats is a lot more interesting and fun and engaging, and this just annoyed me.
Well, there are more interesting tracks on Gizmodrome, I think. Man in the Mountain, I think, is hilarious.
I do remember the opening to that as well, but nothing else about the song.
I found it so funny. I can't believe you don't remember any of it.
I just found it.
You don't even remember the Giddy Ups.
No, I don't.
You need to listen to it again.
You've described
Nick.
the three parts of the album that I've made notes on, which are the title track, the bass part of Spin This, and the opening of Man in the Mountain.
So you haven't noted the best track on the album?
Is there a best track on the album?
I Know Too Much.
I don't think you do if you like this album, Joe.
I Know Too Much is the best track on this album, and then Spin This. Oh, I actually thought the final quarter of this album was really strong. Spin This, I Know Too Much, and Stark Naked was a great closing trio to the album. And Nick has no opinion.
I have no opinion because I don't remember them.
Nick, you need to pay attention.
I've listened to this album a good 8 or 9 times, and nothing's stuck out to me.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we're going to get any more out of this.
I don't think I've got anything else I can say.
I give this album a light 8 out of 10. Instrumentals were nearly fantastic throughout. Only a couple of songs I didn't like, Amaka Peeper and Subata Cheve, but the rest of the tracks I thought were great. So yeah.
Light 4.
I'm giving them bread.
I'm shooting them, and then making sure they're dead by stomping on them, and then serving them up with a nice orange sauce.
I prefer plum myself, but
Maybe I just had a bad week.
I think.
There's...
Do you need to go to the spa, Nick?
I might do.
You need some therapy.
I don't know. This has been quite a disappointing 2 weeks for albums for me.
Yeah, disappointing crop for you.
Do you know what else is a really disappointing album?
I know what you're going to say. Go on.
The new Killers album.
What I will say about the Killers is that I've never really cared for them at all. Like, they had some good tracks on their first album, but ever since I haven't cared at all for them. I listened to their new album, Wonderful, Wonderful, and I thought, yeah, it's the Killers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that traditional mid-tempo pop rock with dull verses and the occasional chorus to try and stab at the radio.
Yeah.
I mean, they seem like they want to make a grand statement on every single track.
Yeah, to me, that album, I thought the songs sometimes were, fine enough composed, but I think their overall tone is just too sappy for me. Too sappy for me.
It's not terrible instrumentation and composition-wise throughout, but it's just not really... It doesn't strike a chord with me at all.
Yeah. If you're middle-aged, then maybe this is for you, but not for me.
I'm going to go and do that thing again where I'll say I'd much rather just listen to Sam's Town or Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. I just listened to Somebody Told Me. That's the only Killers track in my opinion.
I listened to that the other day and realised that the drums on it are actually really good.
Yeah.
I've never noticed that
drums
before.
are great, and then the lyrics are just catchy, if a little bit, weird.
Yeah.
But
I like the singles from Sam's Town as well. I will defend that. Please stop Brandon Flowers.
I wish I could, but if we can't stop Katy Perry, then
no.
Oh, the gulags. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you're going to have to set up a F-sharp, A-sharp revisited gulag, and then keep a list of who we're throwing into it.
Yeah.
So far we've got Katy Perry, Taylor Swift,
Fergie,
and Brandon Flowers.
We will get to you, Machine Gun Kelly. We just need to actually talk to you, talk about you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got enough time for one more tiny review of an album. Enter Shikari's new album, The Spark. Yeah. We already talked about the lead single from it.
Yeah, Live Outside. Yeah, which we agreed.
Both
liked. It was a good track, yeah.
Liked. What I'll say about this album straight off the bat is it has the most earworms on it of any album I've listened to this year. I think there are just so many parts of it which have just got stuck in my head. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Some of them are a lot better than others. Yeah. It's like on a level between Walking on Sunshine and Something Good.
For me, this album, I did like it, but there were moments on this album where I was listening to it and I just thought, I'm not a teenager anymore. I don't know what that says. Well, I listen to dad rock now, so I guess that's the reason why.
The thing I think about this album is I've always kind of liked Enter Shikari, but I've never taken them seriously at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like before they were sort of fighting between lyrics where they felt like they could change the world and these sort of genre-bending mashups of electronics and metal, and sticking the two together, it just made it impossible for me to really take it seriously. So I'm glad that on this they've sort of taken back one of them to focus on the other, and now that they're a lot softer spoken, making more sort of emotional compositions, I feel like I can root for them a bit more. That being said, Rabble Rouser is really dull.
Yeah. I don't have much more of an opinion on that album.
It's sad that we're sad that we've put this in the mini review section, because this is probably my favourite album of the past 2 weeks. I really like the first half of it, and I think the second half has some really great ideas on it.
Oh, okay. Are we going to pat them on the head? Are we going to throw them,
I'm
throw them
going to
some
throw
bread?
them some bread because I quite like this direction they're going
I
in.
think I'll pat them on the head and give them a crumb. That's what I'll do.
Well, that was a devastating week and
It
a
was.
bit.
I think only I actually liked albums this time.
No, I like the
Like,
Shikari album. I've listened to it quite a lot, actually. I will happily go back to it and listen to it a few times.
yeah. What I will say is that I don't know what Nick's talking about with Gizmodrome. I really don't. I really enjoyed the album. If you like a bit of funk rock and a bit of a throwback feel, then go listen to
If
it.
you like funk rock, go and listen to Primus.
And it's not really the same branch of funk rock, though, is it?
It's more interesting.
Uh,
Exactly.
I actually say it isn't more interesting.
How can you say that Les
Poor-
Claypool's
poor sounds.
amazingly weird vocals and fantastic bass lines aren't more interesting?
Quite easily.
Just think of To Defy the Laws of Tradition. Think of the bass line on that.
That is a better song than anything on Gizmodrome, but on the whole, I think it's a great album.
Well, as I don't think that we've devoted enough time to end Shikari this time round, we're actually going to end the podcast with a new feature that we've decided to do. Joe suggested that we try and do a good, sincere cover of a song from an album we've talked about each time. And Joe, unfortunately, was too busy and suggested we start doing it next podcast. And I said, no, I'm going to knock this out in 2 hours.
Oh,
And I did.
Oh.
And it kind of worked. So we'll stick that
Yeah,
on the end for you all to listen to.
I actually haven't listened to it yet, so we'll see. Yeah, I'm sure it's lovely, Nick.
Well, let's
I'm sure it's
just have
lovely.
a quick go over the albums we've talked about this time
yeah.
round.
Foo Fighters,
which
it's
is
alright.
yeah, it's alright.
It's alright.
I mean, they've done better, they've done worse.
We'll leave it to your discretion.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
listen to Run if you have to listen to one track of it. I think Ariel. Pink.
Ariel Pink. Oh, it's pick out the highlights if you can.
It's quite fluffy as an album.
Yeah, a bit fluffy. It's a bit disorientating,
and it's a bit unfocused.
Bit unfocused.
I mean, I suppose it's quite an eccentric album, so it's not.
It's going to be that way
Yeah.
a little bit anyway, isn't it?
Go and listen to Time to Live and I'd say Bubblegum Dreams as well.
Yeah, and who knows, if you like endless quirkiness, then maybe
You should go and listen to Pom Pom by Ariel Pink.
Okay, yeah. Pretty much. And then I think we talked about Fergie. We won't talk about her again. Gulag. And then Godspeed You Black Emperor, who Nick is very annoyed by.
I'm very annoyed by this band.
I enjoyed the album. Some of the other bits that go along with the album, not so much a fan. But music's music.
Music is music.
Music
very
is music.
Insightful comment from Joe Ellis.
Yes, Joe Ellis 2017. And then we had Gizmodrome, the mandatory album of the podcast, which I like a whole lot more than Nick does.
I think this has been the biggest discrepancy between you liking an album and me not liking it so far.
Yeah. Is it quite as much as Between the Buried and Me? Or that was the
that
other way
doesn't
around,
really count
yeah.
because that was a non-new release.
Okay.
So
but yeah.
also, you just generally don't like that genre of music very much.
I do sometimes, but it has to be done well.
Well, we're going to end the podcast now. It's a lovely sunny day outside, so
We're going to get some vitamin D.
Go and get some vitamin D.
Make me happy, cure my sadness.
I hope you enjoy the cover, which is coming up after we say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And now we edit in the shameless plugs afterwards. Plug time.
Plug time. Get
We're
your plugs.
We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. I am actually making an attempt to use Twitter in a good way. We got retweeted by Sam Carter, who is a good folk musician, and you should all check him out.
Yeah, I'm terrible at the Twitter and the Facebook and the internet in general, basically.
But we're getting there.
We're getting there.
You can find this podcast on Podbean, on YouTube, and on iTunes.
Yes, you can. Make sure to subscribe.
Also, shameless plug for someone else. Our good friends Charlie and James have set up a comedy group together on YouTube. I believe it's called Alcott Gardner.
Yeah, or the show at the end.
Yeah.
We should probably know that if we're going to plug it, but
yeah, they only showed it to us yesterday, but it's go and look them up and give them a listen.
Yeah, it's a comedy thing.
We'll put a link in the doodly box. Anyway, We've already said our goodbyes.
Yes, goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Desolate and underfoot, a tarmac river flows. Wait to depart an inconceivable ought when you're no wings and all elbows. Oh, it's so cold, I watch my breath unfold. It wraps us in a cloud of gloom. Through adversity, hope must not become the casualty. It's common for people to believe everything happens for a reason. I'm sorry, that's false and it's poison. Even if there is no purpose to the things that you have gone through, an ordeal can reveal an airfield. Stop disown fear, and I'll be here if you need a friend, my dear. Yeah, you're down on your luck, you're down. Yeah, you're down on your luck, you're down, but that don't mean you're out. No, it don't mean you're out now. So you're down on your luck, you're down. Yeah, you're down on your luck, you're down, but that don't mean you're out. No, it don't mean you're out now. You're down on your luck, you're down. You're down on your luck, you're down, but that don't mean you're out. It don't mean you're out now. It don't mean you're out, no. Against you, remember this inside as the optimal condition for birds to take flight. Now the wind's against you, don't give up the fight. F sharp, A sharp, revisited.